I shouldn't have said it out loud. Some thoughts are supposed to stay in your head, especially when they're about your best friend's mom. But the beer was cold, the game was loud, and my brain decided honesty was a good idea. Man, your mom's hotter than most girls I've dated. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Lucas burst out laughing instantly. Dude, that's my mom, you psycho. I laughed too, pretending it was just dumb guy humor. Just a joke, nothing serious. Except it wasn't completely a joke. Because the moment I'd walked into that house earlier that night, something about her had hit me differently. Her name was Marissa Cole, 39. Lucas told me that like it was ancient history. But when she walked out of the kitchen holding a tray of tacos, she didn't look old, not even close. She had this calm confidence about her. Dark hair tied loosely back, warm hazel eyes, simple black top and jeans that somehow looked effortless on her, not trying to impress anyone, and somehow that made it worse. Tyler, right? She'd said earlier, offering her hand with a soft smile. When our hands touched, I remember thinking something I shouldn't have. She feels different, not like girls my age who lived on Instagram and drama. She felt grounded, real. And apparently my brain had decided to announce that attraction during a FIFA match. Lucas kept laughing while unpausing the game, but that's when something strange happened. I glanced toward the kitchen and saw Marissa standing there, drying a plate, watching me. She had definitely heard what I said. For a second, I expected her to look offended, or awkward, or at least embarrassed. But she didn't. Instead, she held my gaze for just a moment longer than normal. Then the corner of her mouth lifted into the smallest, most curious smile. And that smile did something to my stomach I still can't fully explain. Because it didn't feel like she was offended. It felt like she was considering something. I tried to forget that smile. Seriously, I did. But the problem with moments like that is they replay in your head when you least expect it. Driving home that night through the quiet streets of Fresno, I kept seeing it. That look Marissa gave me. Not angry, not embarrassed. Curious. And that made it worse. Because curiosity meant she had thought about what I said. Maybe more than once. The next few days at work were painfully normal. Fix phones. Replace screens. Explain to customers that no, rice does not magically repair water damage. Lucas and I joked around like always. But something inside me felt slightly off. Every time he mentioned his mom casually, my brain reacted differently. Mom made these cookies last night, he said during lunch Tuesday, tossing one across the repair counter. I caught it automatically. Nice, I said. But suddenly I was imagining her in the kitchen again, and I hated that, because Lucas trusted me. Then Wednesday happened. I was halfway through a sandwich during my lunch break when my phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Marissa Cole started following you. For a second, I just stared at the screen. How did she even find me? Lucas must have mentioned my name or shown her something. Still, my thumb hesitated before opening her profile. It looked exactly like I imagined. No selfies, no attention-seeking posts, just photos of sunsets over Fresno. A few pictures of Lucas at baseball games. Coffee mugs next to half-read books. Simple, real. Without thinking too much, I followed her back. 5 seconds later, another notification popped up. She liked one of my photos, an old hiking picture from the Sierra Nevada Trail. Then another, a shot of my messy repair bench. My pulse quickened. Was this normal? Or was she actually looking through my profile? I locked my phone, trying to calm down, but a strange thought kept creeping into my head. Maybe she remembered what I said, and maybe she didn't hate hearing it. 3 days after she followed me, something happened that I still replay in my head sometimes. Lucas invited me over again. Mom's making pasta Friday, he said during our shift, spinning a screwdriver between his fingers. You coming? I pretended to think about it, but the truth was, I had already decided the moment he asked. Yeah, I said casually, sure. All week I told myself it was nothing. Just dinner, just hanging out. But Friday night I did something I hadn't done in months. I actually cared what I looked like. Instead of my usual worn-out work tee, I put on a clean button-up shirt, ran a comb through my hair, even found an old bottle of cologne buried in my bathroom cabinet. Halfway to Lucas's house, I laughed at myself. Why are you acting like this is a date? It wasn't. It couldn't be. When Lucas opened the door, he slapped my shoulder. Look at you, he joked. Trying to impress someone? Shut up, I said, walking inside. And then I saw her. Marissa stood at the stove stirring a pot of pasta sauce, the kitchen warm with the smell of garlic and basil. She turned when Lucas said my name, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. She wore a simple sundress that moved softly when she walked. Her hair was down tonight, falling around her shoulders. But it wasn't the dress that caught me off guard. It was her expression. She smiled when she saw me. Not the polite smile from last week. This one felt different, intentional. "Tyler," she said warmly. "Good to see you again." Something in my chest tightened. Dinner started normally. Lucas talking nonstop, me answering with half jokes. But I noticed things. Marissa asked me more questions than before. About hiking, about work, about what I like to do outside the shop. And every time I answered, she watched me closely. Then halfway through dinner, she said something that made my fork freeze. "Lucas mentioned you said something interesting about me last time." Lucas laughed immediately. "Oh yeah," he said. "Dude called you hot." My face burned, but Marissa didn't laugh. She just looked at me and softly said, "Well, it's been a long time since someone said that to me." For a second, nobody spoke. Lucas was too busy shoveling pasta into his mouth to notice the tension that suddenly filled the kitchen. But I noticed, and so did she. My face was burning as I cleared my throat. "I mean, it was just a dumb joke," I muttered. Marissa tilted her head slightly. "Was it?" Her tone wasn't accusing. If anything, it sounded curious. I suddenly became very interested in my plate. Lucas snorted. "Relax, dude. Mom gets hit on by nurses at the hospital all the time." Marissa rolled her eyes. "That's not true." But when she looked back at me, there was something playful in her expression. "Still," she added softly, "I'll take the compliment." The conversation moved on after that. Lucas started complaining about a coworker. I jumped in with a story about a customer who dropped his phone in a toilet. Everyone laughed. Everything looked normal, but under the table, I could feel something shifting. Marissa kept glancing at me. Quick looks, subtle, but they were there, and every time our eyes met, she didn't look away immediately. After dinner, Lucas stood up suddenly. "Controller's upstairs. Give me a minute." He disappeared toward the stairs, and just like that, it was quiet. Only the sound of the sink running. Marissa stood there washing dishes while I awkwardly stacked plates beside her. We were standing closer than before, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something light, soft, almost floral. She handed me a wet plate and our fingers brushed. Then she spoke quietly. "About what you said the other night." My heart started beating faster. "Were you serious?" The question caught me off guard. I could have laughed it off. I could have played dumb. But something about the way she asked, honest and slightly vulnerable, made that impossible. So I told the truth. "Yeah," I admitted quietly. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. "I meant it." She leaned lightly against the counter, studying me. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. "You know, it's been years since someone looked at me like that." And the way she said it sounded a little lonely. I didn't know what to say to that. Lonely wasn't the word I expected to hear from her. Marissa always seemed so composed, like someone who had her life together. But the way she said it just then, quiet, almost like a confession, made her seem suddenly human in a way I hadn't noticed before. Lucas's footsteps were still upstairs, which meant we had a few seconds. And for some reason, those seconds felt important. "You don't seem invisible to me," I said softly. The word surprised even me. Marissa looked at me carefully, like she was trying to figure out if I was just being polite. "You're being nice," she said. "I'm being honest." Her hazel eyes held mine. Something in her expression softened. "After my marriage ended," she said quietly, "people stopped seeing me as anything except Lucas's mom." She dried her hands slowly with the dish towel. Men stopped looking. Conversations changed. I just became background noise. The way she said it made my chest tighten. I had never thought about that before. To me, she didn't look invisible at all. She looked like someone people should notice immediately. Lucas's footsteps echoed again upstairs, still not coming down. I lowered my voice. "For what it's worth, you're the opposite of invisible." She blinked once, and for a moment something vulnerable flickered across her face. Then Lucas's voice suddenly shouted from upstairs.
"Found it!"
The moment snapped instantly. Marissa straightened slightly, clearing her throat and placing the towel on the counter. "Thanks for helping with the dishes, Tyler," she said with a small smile. Like nothing had happened. We moved to the living room. Games started again. Lucas trash-talked the entire time. But something had changed. Marissa came in twice with snacks, and each time she walked past the couch, her hand brushed my shoulder lightly, not by accident. By the time I drove home that night, Fresno's streets were quiet. I sat in my car outside my apartment for a full minute before checking my phone. One new notification. "Marissa Cole liked your photo." An old concert picture from 2 years ago. I stared at the screen, because liking that photo meant something. She had been scrolling, looking, and suddenly one thought hit me harder than the rest. Maybe she was curious about me too. The message came 3 days later. I remember exactly where I was when my phone buzzed. Standing behind the repair counter, carefully replacing a cracked iPhone screen while Lucas argued with a customer about warranty coverage. I glanced down. Instagram DM. From Marissa. My stomach tightened immediately. I opened it. Lucas is out with friends tonight. If you're not busy, you could stop by for tea. That was it. No emojis, no explanation, just a quiet invitation. My heart started beating faster, because this wasn't Lucas inviting me over. This was her, and suddenly every possible outcome ran through my head. What if this was a mistake? What if she just wanted to talk? What if Lucas somehow found out? But there was another thought. The one I couldn't ignore. What if she wanted to see me too? I typed my reply 3 times before sending it. Sure, I can stop by. The drive across Fresno that night felt different, like I was heading somewhere I shouldn't be. When I pulled into the neighborhood, the house looked the same as always. Quiet street, basketball hoop in the driveway. But Lucas's car wasn't there, only hers. I knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Marissa stood there wearing a soft sweater and jeans, her hair down around her shoulders. She smiled, but it wasn't the relaxed smile I'd seen before. This one had nerves in it. Tyler, she said softly. I stepped inside and instantly noticed something. The house felt calmer. Dim lights in the living room, soft jazz music playing somewhere. No TV, no video games, just quiet. She led me to the kitchen where 2 mugs of tea sat waiting, beside a plate of warm cookies. You didn't have to come, she said gently, but I'm glad you did. I took the seat across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stirred her tea slowly and said something that made my chest tighten. You know, after that dinner the other night. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said to me. And the way she said it sounded like that thought had stayed with her much longer than she expected. For a few seconds, I didn't respond. I just sat there with my hands wrapped around the warm mug, trying to figure out what the right thing to say was. But the truth was, I had been thinking about her too, more than I probably should have. I meant what I said, I told her quietly. Her eyes dropped to the tea swirling in her cup. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be nice. She looked back up slowly, and something about the way she studied my face made it feel like she was searching for something real. You know what's strange? She said after a moment. What? You're the first man in years who's looked at me like that. There was no bitterness in her voice, just honesty. My marriage ended 8 years ago, she continued softly. After that,
I stopped being Marissa.
Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. I became Lucas's mom. The way she said it made the kitchen feel smaller, lonelier. I focused on work. Raising him, paying bills, being responsible. She exhaled quietly. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a woman. That sentence hung in the air between us, heavy, personal. I leaned forward slightly. You still are, I said. Her eyes met mine again. There was something fragile in them now, something that hadn't been there before. And how would you know that? She asked gently. I hesitated, because the honest answer felt dangerous. But I said it anyway. Because every time you walk into a room, I notice silence filled the kitchen. Not awkward silence. The kind where both people are suddenly aware something real just happened. She stood slowly and walked around the table, stopping only a few steps away from me, close enough that I could smell her perfume again. Soft, warm. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. Tyler, you know this could complicate things, right? I knew exactly what she meant. Lucas, my friend, her son, I swallowed. Yeah, I admitted. Her eyes held mine. But the weird part is, my voice lowered. I don't want it to stop. And judging by the way her fingers slowly reached for mine, neither did she. Her fingers closed gently around mine. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. Just careful. Like we both understood this moment mattered more than either of us expected. The kitchen felt very quiet suddenly. The jazz music drifting faintly from the living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator. Marissa didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she looked down at where our fingers were touching, like she was still deciding if this was real. Tyler, she said softly. There was hesitation in her voice now, not fear, responsibility. My whole life has been about protecting Lucas, she continued. Every decision I make somehow connects back to him. I nodded slowly. I get that. And you're his friend. That word landed heavier than anything else she had said. Friend. I felt the weight of it. The loyalty. The trust. For a second, I almost pulled my hand away. Almost. But then she squeezed my fingers slightly. You should know something, she added quietly. I wouldn't be sitting here like this if you didn't mean something to me too. My chest tightened, because hearing that out loud changed everything. You do? I asked. Her lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. You make me feel seen, she admitted, and that's something I haven't felt in a very long time. Neither of us moved. The space between us suddenly felt smaller, charged. Tell me something honestly, she said after a moment. Okay. If Lucas didn't exist? If none of the complicated parts existed? She hesitated, studying my face. Would you still want this? The question caught me off guard, because it forced me to look at the truth without excuses. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I stood slowly from the chair. Now we were only inches apart, close enough to feel her breath. Yes, I said quietly. Her eyes searched mine again, and something inside her seemed to finally decide. She stepped closer, so close our shoulders touched, and then she whispered something that made my heart start pounding. So, what do we do now? For a moment, I didn't answer her, because the truth was, I had been asking myself that same question for days. What do we do now? There wasn't a simple answer. Lucas existed. Our lives were tangled around him in ways neither of us could ignore, but standing that close to her, feeling the warmth of her hand still resting against mine, pretending nothing was happening suddenly felt impossible. We should probably stop, I said quietly. The word surprised even me. Marissa didn't pull away, but I saw something flicker across her face. Not anger, something closer to disappointment. You believe that? She asked softly. I hesitated. No, I admitted. Her eyes searched mine carefully. Then why say it? Because I was scared. Because Lucas trusted me. Because crossing this line meant there was no going back. All I keep thinking about, I said slowly, is what happens if he finds out. Marissa exhaled gently and leaned back against the counter. I think about that too. Her voice was calm, but there was sadness behind it. He's my son. He's my world. She looked down for a second before continuing. But that doesn't mean I stopped being a person. The honesty in that sentence hit me harder than anything else she had said that night. For years, she continued quietly, every part of my life has revolved around being responsible, being careful, being the strong one. Her eyes lifted again, and then you walked into my kitchen and told my son I was hot. Despite the tension, I couldn't help smiling slightly. She shook her head with a small laugh. You have no idea what that did to me. What did it do? I asked. She stepped closer again, slowly, carefully. It reminded me that someone could still look at me and see a woman. Her fingers brushed my arm, light but deliberate. And the truth is, her voice dropped to a whisper, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you either. My heart started racing again, because hearing that meant something bigger than attraction was happening. But the thought that followed scared me even more, because if this continued, sooner or later, Lucas was going to find out. That night didn't end with some dramatic decision. No promises, no plan, just two people standing in a quiet kitchen, realizing something real had already started. Marissa was the one who finally broke the silence. We should slow down, she said softly. Not pulling away, not ending it, just acknowledging the risk. I nodded. Yeah. But neither of us moved, because the truth was already sitting between us. We both wanted this. Eventually, she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It felt like relief, like two people admitting something they'd been holding in too long. For a few seconds, we just stood there. No words, just the quiet sound of jazz drifting from the other room. When we finally pulled apart, she gave me a small smile. You should probably go before Lucas decides to come home early. Reality creeping back in. I laughed quietly. Yeah, that would be bad. I walked toward the door, but before leaving, I turned back. She was standing in the same spot, watching me, and something about that look told me this wasn't going to be a one-time thing. Not anymore. Outside, the Fresno night air felt cooler than before. My car sat alone at the curb. But I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I sat there thinking about everything that had just happened. Lucas, my friend, Marissa, the woman who suddenly made my simple life feel different, more alive, more complicated. I knew one thing for sure. There was no clean version of this story. No perfect path where everyone stayed happy. But as I glanced back at the warm light glowing through her kitchen window, I also knew something else. For the first time in years, I didn't feel stuck anymore. Marissa had awakened something in me, something bigger than routine, something worth risking, and whether that risk turned into the best decision of my life, or the biggest mistake I'd ever make, one thing was certain. Our story had only just begun,